Welcome to Tenant Preparation 101, Finding a Place to Live. Looking for a place to live is a fact of life for all of us at one point or another. In this workshop, we will discuss the preparation that goes into finding a home to rent, whether that's an apartment or a house. There's so much to know about renting that we have broken up our tenant preparation into two classes. This class, Tenant Preparation 101, is designed to give you the tools to determine how much you can afford and other costs involved in moving so that you don't jump in before you're ready. We'll then help you hone in on your housing needs. After that, we'll walk you through the application process, including the importance of references and preparing your references for a call from your potential new landlord. We'll also give you a few tips on how to avoid being taken advantage by scammers. Finally, we'll talk about making a good impression on your prospective landlord. Finding the right housing can be hard for everybody. There are many things that go into finding a rental, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. There are many details from figuring out how much we can afford to filling out rental agreements. Finding the right apartment for you and organizing a safe and smooth relocation is not necessarily an easy task. Fortunately, taking the process of searching for a home one step at a time simplifies the process. Usually, our success in any challenge is affected by how we approach the challenge. You may be in a position where you must move, or you may be in a position where you are simply just desiring to relocate. Either way, one of the first thing that pops into your mind when thinking about moving is money. Moving's expensive. Not only do we have to think about rent for a new place, but we must also think about other costs like first and last month rent and damage deposits. There are also other costs involved that are not as obvious, things like moving trucks and cable hookups. So our first step is to look at the costs that are involved. First, we need to start with a budget so that we know what we can afford for our monthly rent. Doing so will help save time. Even more importantly, it will help you avoid getting into a rental that ultimately you can't afford. If you don't already have an idea of how much you think you can afford, spending around 30% of your income on rent is a good rule of thumb that will allow you to still be able to pay for the other expenses in life. In fact, most prospective landlords will be asking about your income. Most landlords consider about a third or less of your monthly income to be what you can afford to pay for your housing. While there's no hard and fast rule about what you can afford, this is a good starting point. If you're going to have a roommate, you might be able to afford higher rent. However, keep in mind, you'll want to have some money saved as backup if your roommate suddenly moves out or isn't able to pay. Does your monthly budget include utilities? Many places include water, sewer, and garbage and rent, but some don't. Rarely is electricity or gas included in monthly rent. You will need to know upfront what is included and what is not so you can make sure to have room in your budget. If you haven't created a monthly budget already, Hope University offers a class called Managing Your Money that explains the basics and walks you through creating a budget. Hope University also offers one-on-one coaching to help you develop a budget if you'd like more help. Beyond your monthly budget, we also need to consider some of the other upfront costs of moving. Almost always, you will need to pay the first month's rent and a damage deposit before you move in. When you rent a home from somebody else, they typically require that you give them a certain amount of money to protect them from the damages. When you leave and have not damaged the property, they will most likely refund that amount to you. In Tenant Prep 102, we will explain more about that and what you can do to get the damage deposit refunded. In any case, though, this is an expense that must be covered when moving into a new place. Some landlords also charge a non-refundable cleaning fee or require you to pay the last month's rent before you move in. So saving up for these expenses before moving can save you some big headaches. There are also some other one-time moving costs that you'll need to factor in. Many places will charge you for applying so they can do a background check. Setting up the new utilities often requires a deposit or setup fee. You'll probably have to purchase packing supplies, although keep in mind there are ways to lower these costs. Often you can ask friends and find moving boxes you can use. Local grocery stores and other businesses will sometimes have boxes that you can just take for free. Call around and ask. Some places have more boxes available on their delivery days. When boxing your stuff, don't waste a box by placing all your towels and sheets in them. You can save on packing supplies by using your linens to pad the bottom of boxes and to wrap fragile items. You can also tuck them into empty spaces in boxes to keep your breakables from shifting. Another useful technique is not to put all your books or other heavy items in one box. Distribute the weight so that all the boxes weigh approximately the same. Your back will thank you too. You can also keep a few blankets handy to wrap large breakable items like your television. Just wrap the blanket around it and secure it with packing tape. Moving fewer items can also sometimes help you save money. Moving is a great time to go through your things and get rid of outdated items, duplicates, and anything else you no longer need or like. You can sell or donate these unneeded things that are still in good condition and make a little money to support your move. And you can recycle or throw away worn out items that can't be used anymore. When moving time comes, it's also likely that you'll need to take multiple trips in your car or truck to move your things. If you have a lot of stuff, you may need to rent a moving truck or hire people to help you. Each one of these options comes with its own expense, even if it's just pizza to thank your friends for helping. There's also cleaning costs. Many places you'll be moving to will already have been cleaned for you. This is most often true of apartment complexes, but other places do this as well. You may find, though, that your home has not been cleaned to your standards. Many people like to deep clean everything when they move into a new home, and this will likely require an extra expense in cleaning supplies, especially if you don't already have a large supply. Keep in mind you will also want to do a good job of cleaning the place you're moving out of.
This will help you get the most possible amount of your damage deposit back.
If you're moving to your own place for the first time, there will probably be things you will need that you haven't thought of, like cooking utensils. Even if you have lived on your own for some time, there are always the unexpected things that are needed, like a new shower curtain or front door mat that cost money. These things add up, so it's a good idea to have money set aside to cover them. You also should plan on your food budget being a little higher the first month you move. You may be thinking, I have to eat anyway, so why is this listed as one of the costs of moving? There's a couple reasons. First, people don't always feel like cooking when they're packing, unpacking, or living out of boxes. In addition, when moving, you might throw away food staples you didn't feel like moving or lose perishable foods that were in your refrigerator or freezer. When you move to your new place, those things will need to be replaced. Finally, let's talk about furniture. Depending on whether you're moving out on your own for the first time or into an apartment that's a lot different from the one that you've had, you may need to get some furniture. There's a big range here on how much you might spend. You might be able to get furniture from friends or family or even strangers on Facebook groups. There's several Facebook groups that offer things for free to others in the community. The most expensive option, of course, is to buy new. It's possible to get a little crazy when it comes to furniture. You could easily pay thousands of dollars to furnish and decorate your new apartment. But by keeping these things simple, you can cut costs. A middle-of-the-road option might be purchase used furniture at the Habitat store, Goodwill, or on Craigslist. So, when we are looking for places to move out into, these are the expenses beyond rent that we will need to consider. The biggest advice from people who've moved recently: plan for the unexpected expenses. Now that we've determined our budget and what some of our other costs might be, here comes the fun part: making a shopping list. Searching for a place to rent is essentially shopping for a home, so we'll be talking about making a list of the traits of your new home. When you go shopping for groceries, shopping with a list generally makes your job easier. It saves you time because you don't have to walk down every aisle. You know what you're looking for, and you save money by not buying something that you might not necessarily need. The same is true when shopping for a home. Before you go start looking at places, figure out what you need. Maybe there are some wants that you have too. Maybe those are really important to you. If you have a tight budget, it's a good idea to know what you do or do not need before shopping for a place. After budget, one of the next things to ask is how big my household is and how much space do we need. If you're single, could a studio apartment work? A studio apartment is an apartment without a bedroom, just a kitchen, bathroom, and a living space. A couple might be able to live in a studio or one bedroom depending on their needs, while a family with children probably needs more bedrooms. Does everyone in your household need their own bedroom? The answer to that requires careful thought. Also, an important consideration: how many bathrooms do you need? If you see an apartment advertised as having a 3/4 bath, that means a bathroom with a toilet, sink, and a shower, but not a bathtub. Other people will simply call this a bathroom, but if you see 3/4 bath, that's what that means. Half bath is a bathroom with no shower or tub. Do you need more than one bathroom? Do you need a shower and a tub? If these are important considerations for you, you will want to watch for them in the ads you're looking at. Next, what kind of neighborhood do you want to live in? You could move to the country or into a quiet neighborhood in town. Maybe a nice apartment complex where there are other children for your kids to play with. Or, hey, maybe you're an adult who's looking to live in a place where there aren't lots of children. Knowing what's important to you and what you can and can't live with is really important in finding the right place to live. For many people, distance from the college campus or work is an important thing to consider, especially if you don't own reliable transportation or if you want to save on fuel costs. If this is the case, you would want to make sure you're only looking at rentals near your place of employment. Looking at houses in the country would be a waste of time in this scenario. While these things are important things to consider for your shopping list, there are other things to think about. Do you own your own furniture? If you're moving out on your own for the first time and you don't have furniture, you might want to consider an already furnished apartment. Do you need a unit with a washer and dryer, or is going to a laundromat okay? Do you smoke? And if so, are you able to smoke inside the unit you're thinking about renting? Many people have pets, and their needs are a major consideration too. Do you have a large dog that wouldn't do well in a small apartment? Does the ad you're looking at describe an otherwise perfect house say no pets in all capital letters? If so, this might not be the choice for you. Write down all the things that are necessary to you or mark them on the housing needs worksheet provided with this workshop. What else is important to you? Do you absolutely hate doing dishes? If so, you might want to look for rentals that have a dishwasher. As you go through this process, think about what you need to have and what you want to have. For a family with 2 kids and no car, being close to the kids' school and parents' work would be a need, while a dishwasher might be nice to have, but isn't something that we need to prioritize. Especially in tight housing markets where there aren't a lot of options, you might have to sacrifice the wants to make sure your basic needs are met and you're still on budget. Now that you have your shopping list completed, where do you look? You can look in newspaper ads or online. Craigslist, the Ellensburg Daily Record, Zillow, and Trulia are all some places you could look. More and more people are finding places to rent on Facebook through local and rental housing groups. Sometimes, putting what you are looking for as a post in these groups allows potential landlords to reach out to you. Another option is to go into a local property management agency and have a conversation with them. You can also do a walk-by and look at all the ads that they post on their windows. If you have a fixed income or are elderly or have a disability, there are low-income and subsidized housing options that might be right for you. You can check with the Housing Authority of Kittitas County or come to the Hope Source office to investigate your options. Remember, often there is a waiting list for these properties, so if you're looking to move, planning is going to be really important. Once you know how much you can afford and your home shopping list is complete, you're ready to start searching for a place to live. One of the things you're going to be doing out first is filling out a rental application. When you fill out the application, be prepared with 2 forms of ID. Have a method of payment ready because, as we mentioned before, many landlords charge a fee for applying so they can obtain your credit report or do a background check. Many will require a money order or cash and not take checks for this. Be sure to get a receipt for this. You also might be asked for pay stubs, bank statements, and rental history. Get this information ahead of time so you are prepared. Always fill out a rental application form as completely as you can. You're going to want to be accurate and thorough and not skip sections. You will also want to answer as honestly as you can. If you lie, the result may be a refusal of your application for the current property. Double check the accuracy of what you put down. Keep in mind, some companies manage a lot of properties, so if they discover you lied on their application, they might just refuse your application for all of the other properties they own. This means a lot of options may suddenly close out on you, so just remember, honesty is the best policy. In general, landlords are looking for tenants who will be able to pay their rent consistently. They want tenants who will treat the units with care and will be trouble-free neighbors. Every landlord has their own set of requirements for their tenants. Landlords can use whatever screening criteria they want if they are applying these criteria in a non-discriminatory manner. If they ask a question of one type of renter, they must ask it for all the applicants to not be discriminatory. Any tenant who's denied tenancy from a screening report or receives an adverse action like a request for an increased deposit or a cosigner must be informed in writing of the reason why. If you're consistently having trouble locating housing because of criminal history or bad credit, you might want to write a letter to the potential landlord acknowledging your past issues, taking responsibility for them, and telling them how you've changed and how you're making a new start. Your potential new landlord is also likely to ask for references. When it comes to references for a rental, there are typically two kinds of references: rental references and a personal reference. The difference between a rental reference and a personal reference is that a rental reference will specifically focus on your rental history and behavior, while a personal reference is more able to speak to your overall character. Ideally, you should have at least 3 references prepared, but sometimes this isn't always possible. If you don't have any rental references, be upfront about it and explain that when you submit your application. Don't just leave it blank and hope for the best. If asked for rental references you don't have, try to insert extra personal references if possible. For either kind of reference, keep in mind the kinds of questions that the landlord is likely to ask your references. How do you know this person? How long have you known this person? Do they pay their rent on time? Do they keep their home clean? Do they keep quiet and avoid disrupting the neighbors? Do they get along well with others? Another option might be to get a letter of references that answers all these questions. You'll still need to list the author of the letter among your references, but this one-time letter could be used for a long time and may make applying for homes easier for you and for your references, especially if they're busy people. In asking your potential reference to serve as a reference for you, you will want to ensure that your references will be able to answer honestly and positively. Be sure that anyone you put down as a reference knows beforehand that you would like to use their name and contact information in this way. Someone who receives a call about you that they are expecting is more likely to give a good referral than someone who has no idea that you use their name on a rental application. Let your references know about each application you submit so they can be prepared to give you a good referral. The same goes for emergency contacts. It may also be a good idea to give your employer a heads up too, since they are likely going to receive a call verifying your employment. When applying for properties, you will also want to be careful with whom you are dealing with. To the best of your ability, make sure that the property you're applying for is real and the person to whom you're submitting your application to actually owns or manages the property. Some signs of scams include they don't want to meet you in person. A good landlord will make sure that they meet you, since renting to someone is a big decision that requires trusting that a person will follow the rules set in the lease. If a landlord is renting out a property themselves, they should want to meet you in person to make sure you're legitimate. On the flip side, scammers typically don't want to meet you since they don't want you to be able to report them. They want you to move in immediately without ever seeing the property. Even if you meet someone in person who claims to be the landlord, you should absolutely see the property, inside and out, before signing a lease or sending any money. It's easy for someone to say they have a property and fake an online listing. In most rental scams, the individual advertising the property doesn't actually have any way to access the inside of the property. If a landlord instructs you to inspect the property by walking around the outside at your convenience, this is almost certainly a scam. They insist on cash. The most popular way of performing shady money operations is working in cash only. The reason why it's so important for scammers to deal with cash is the fact that this money cannot be traced. So, once you've paid them the money for a new place, they have all time in the world to get away with your money. They ask for your rent or security deposit before signing a lease. Another sign that the house you're looking at is a scam is if the property manager or landlord asks for rent or a security deposit before you ever sign the lease. As a potential renter, you should never be asked to give a large sum of money before seeing or signing a lease. As we discussed, application fees, which are used to cover the cost of background checks, are acceptable. The first month's rent, however, is not. The listing has poor grammar or excessive punctuation. Beware of rental listings that are full of errors. Serious landlords or property managers will take the time to write a decent listing. If you come across a rental listing that is full of typos, poor grammar, and excessive punctuation, this is a red flag that it might be a scammer. Finally, when you're meeting with a prospective landlord, make a good first impression. There's always competition for rentals, and you want to demonstrate that you're the best applicant. Start on the right foot with the first call. Be polite, speak slowly. Since most people have busy lives, you might reach voicemail. Don't get frustrated. It shows in your voice, and you can make a bad impression this way. Speak clearly, give your name and your phone number, and in general, follow the instructions presented by the landlord. If they say they prefer an email or text for initial contact, do that if possible. Be prepared and ask good questions. When speaking to the landlord, ask them the questions that you need answers to, such as, Are there other monthly fees besides rent? Or are there pet fees if you have a pet? When meeting with the landlord, bring a copy of your rental application and necessary documents with you. It shows a potential landlord that you are responsible, motivated, and organized by presenting them with almost everything they need to know. Dress for the occasion. When you meet with a prospective landlord, you are potentially entering into a business relationship. You don't need to dress up, but do present a neat and clean appearance. Be on time. If you have an appointment to view the property, be there when you say you will. If you can't make that appointment, call to reschedule or cancel as soon as you know. Everyone understands that emergencies happen, things come up, but no one likes to be stood up. As we've discussed, preparing to move is not an inherently easy process. The sheer volume of things to consider can be staggering, but don't get discouraged. This is a challenge that can be conquered step by step. To review, first, determine your monthly budget. Remember, about 1/3 of your monthly income is a good rule of thumb. Count the cost of moving expenses. A security deposit, utility hookups, packing supplies, moving truck, cleaning supplies, food, and furniture add up. Just be prepared. Make a shopping list. Before you go house hunting, know what your housing needs and wants are. This will save you time and money in the long run. Check out a wide range of sources to find potential homes to rent. Fill out applications completely and honestly. Give your references a heads up. No one likes to be surprised, and they will be better reference for you if they're prepared. Be aware of scammers. And finally, when you're ready to meet a prospective landlord, be ready to make your best first impression. As we've mentioned earlier, there's a lot to learn about the search for housing. This class, Tenant Prep 101, has gotten you off to a good start, but there's still more to learn. We encourage you next to attend Tenant Prep 102. In that class, you will learn about reading and signing leases and the importance of doing an apartment walkthrough. Next, we will give you the tools needed to get a full refund on your damage deposit. And finally, we will discuss the attitudes and behaviors that turns good tenants into what we call the ideal tenant. So, thank you so much for your time and best wishes in your home search.